Hi, welcome to my series where I make Minecraft kingdoms based off of YouTubers. This is in it part 2 or 3, I forgot. Anyways, so I started with apartment buildings because I wanted to have, apartment buildings, as every good city does. I've separated all of these areas into districts, and I wanted to make sure that they were able to have enough housing because I didn't think that one district where those nice houses would be enough. Now, I quite struggled with this palette. Again, I struggle with a lot of these palettes. I never really build with any of these blocks. And it's also a very different aesthetic to what I would usually go for. Usually I go for more fantasy themed or less, like modern. I don't particularly love doing modern just because I can never get it to look exactly how I want it to look, and I'm never really happy with it. But the main issue with this district in particular was the glazed terracotta, because those are specific patterns, and it's quite hard for me to try and figure that out. I was very lucky that I figured out that the debug stick actually worked on that, because otherwise I would have been in so much trouble. Yeah, so I did look at proper, actually apartment plans for when I was building these apartments, because I just wanted to see, because I've never been in an apartment building before, I've never had a proper look at them, all that sort of stuff, so I wanted to see how it actually looked, and all of that. So yeah, that's what I did. I really just made sure, I wanted to keep the red in as well, because I didn't want it to just, be plain black walls, so that's boring. So I used some red wool for the walls, which I think looks quite nice, I'm not gonna lie to you. And yeah, so with each of these apartments, I wanted to have the bare necessities of living, because I'm going to put villages into all my cities. That is just something that I do. It makes it so, I need to have all my cities and villages accessible, and because that's something that I've limited myself to. It's part of my little rules that I set for myself. My rules are, it can be played in survival, somewhat at least. It can be villager accessible, essentially everywhere, and it will have something that everyone would need, like beds, furnace, crafting table, chests, and a couple of other things. So in general, that's kind of what I've done for each of the things. That's just the basic necessities of chest, crafting table, furnace, and any little extra things. I added some flowers. I made sure to add lots of lanterns for light. And to do that, I kind of just copied and pasted it a bunch because I figured that'd be the easiest. For this bottom floor though, I wasn't particularly sure what I wanted to do, purely because in any sort of apartment buildings or hotels I have been in, the bottom floor is always some sort of reception, but you don't really need reception in Minecraft, so I kind of just added a bunch of tables and chairs and then hoped that would do for the best. I did also make sure that I had a little bit of roof access, because I did want you to be able to hop up on the roof and then just see all this sort of stuff, but I did make sure it was safe, that you couldn't accidentally jump off, because I don't want any dying villagers. I would like no lawsuits today, thank you. But essentially what I did is that since those levels were all copied and pasted, I was able to just, extend it and make it taller, except for this side. This side I struggled with a bit, purely because it wasn't the same size as the other one was. It was a bit smaller, so I had to go in myself and make sure that it all, it wasn't just actually shoved into the wall. I made sure it looked a little bit nicer. Now with this one, I'm not too happy with how this turned out, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it's a bit too square for my liking, but I tried my best, alright, I tried my best. I still, this one was more of a spruce one, spruce sort of look, whereas the other one I wanted to, be black and red. This one was just spruce and a bit of black and the smallest amount of red on the inside. This one I also added farms into it, because I knew that the villagers would have to have some sort of way to, logically they would have to have some sort of way, because they are all confined into this under area, and while yes there will be other cities connected to this area, they're not really properly connected. They're going to be little secret tunnels, but for a lore standpoint, because there is much story in this entirety of this world, because they're all in the same world as well. These are all my kingdoms are in the same world, so they're not in different worlds like separate ones that I'm making. No, they're all in the same. And one day I'll have it so everyone can have a shot at it. But yeah, so I wanted to make sure that there'd be a way for logically for people to, you know, be able to eat and naturally reproduce with villages. And so I made these buildings have a lot of, like, you know, it had some cacti, had not pumpkins, it had wheat, carrots and potatoes. And so just that it would have everything. Again, I just copied and pasted that a bunch. Had it to the level I kind of wanted it to be at. I did end up changing this particular one. Again, with the roof access, make sure there's enough lighting up there. This was before I remembered that the lighting block existed. I used that essentially everywhere else. And then I put that just all around, make sure it was all nice. I did change those levels because I hated how level they all were. So I did change that all. But yeah, so that is this district. I did add some like little bit of extras. But that's essentially what that is. I added like lighting and stuff. I'm not too happy with how they were. I did think about changing them a couple of times on stream, because I do stream all of these at www.twitch.com/nonbinary.com. I don't think that was at all what it was. I'm sorry, that was bad. But here there was this little extra bit. I decided to add a fish tank to it. So I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Why not? What else would they have? But I didn't want to have like this massive big empty one, so I added like different levels, and I added some glow squids in, and salmon, but I ended up killing all the salmon because I didn't like it. But I added some glow squids in, and I named them Landon, as one of my subscribers actually wanted me to name them Landon, because they're like, oh yes, Landon, glow squids. The glow squid has to be called Landon. A couple of times those glow squids have despawned, and I've had to go back in and like spawn them back in, but then they just like all reappear, and it's so confusing. Glow squids are a strange creature. Anyways, so going back into this, I went with my new palette, boop, and in this palette there's nether warts, and I'm not very good at netherrack, sorry, it's netherrack. I'm not very good at that, so I kind of just use it for the framing. And then with the other one, I wanted to have these buildings be a lot more cramped together and a lot more like, you know, like they are like shoulder to shoulder. It's a cramped space, all this stuff. Because I really wanted to have that sort of feeling in this city, and I wasn't too happy with how the apartments turned out. Like, I was happy with how they turned out, obviously, but I wasn't like happy with how they all, you know, they had space around them, and they didn't give me that feeling of this is really big and you're really small, which I wanted to have this city give you. But yeah, I ended up like, for this first building, I ended up furnishing a lot of the inside, but I never actually used any of it, because it just, they were too tall. Like, logically no one was gonna go up there ever, and so I ended up just cutting it off at one of the platforms, and so that's how a lot of my buildings are, like the really tall ones. They're all just like cut off. With this building, I did struggle a little bit with how I wanted it to look, because I was really trying to include that red concrete and the red glazed terracotta, but I just couldn't figure it out for the life of me. So I kind of just didn't for this building. It is in there because, you know, again, this is a massive challenge for me. This entire thing has been a massive challenge for me, it's just, you know, massive buildings, which is not really my thing. Set color palettes that I have to adhere to, and I can add, you know, a little bit of extra here and there, but I have to stay to those color palettes. And I can only like use like a branching off of those color palettes, I guess. Like with the terracotta, with the light blue terracotta, I'm allowed to use the darker blue terracotta. Oh, this is when I realized that the snowmen can actually have their heads taken off, and I didn't realize that. I got so excited over that. For like an entire hot minute, I was just like, oh my god, because I had seen like sort of clips about it and all that sort of stuff, but I never actually thought it was real. And I got so hyped over it. But yeah, so we named them Hank and Hector, was their names, which my chat chose. Again, there's lots of animals in this kingdom, which I'm quite happy with, not gonna lie. But yeah, they all have different names and stuff. Yeah, so this nether brick one, again, I'm able to use variations of these bricks, of these like blocks and stuff. So I decided for the netherrack I was going to use nether brick and some gold ore, just so we can have like, you know, something else. Like, I'm sorry, but netherrack is so ugly. Like, it really is. You try and build with netherrack, man. Like, it's ugly. It's ugly. So I really struggled with it, like I genuinely did, but it actually turned out to be one of my favorite buildings, I'm not gonna lie to you. Especially with like the gold trimmings and stuff, I just really love that. But yeah, so then there's also one, I kind of took a bit of inspiration from Bastions for this one, with the with the black stone and the gold. Because I'm like, ooh, it'll be fancy, you know, and add some raw gold in there, because I actually quite like how raw gold looks. It looks like beams, but I don't like beams, but I like how that one looks. It did kind of stuff up a little bit on one of the levels, but yeah. I also did want to add a little bit of shorter building, because I'm like, oh, all of these are really tall. If I add a shorter one in there, it'll, you know, balance it out a little bit. And so that's exactly what I did. I made that one like little Minecraft looking church. And then here's where I actually started like going into the buildings and stuff and like being like, okay, I don't want to build, you know, actual buildings anymore. I just want to look on the inside and all that sort of stuff. I say this inside is actually probably my favorite. Because I just love how it looks. Like on top there was, you know, like a flat where someone would live, and then down here is the library. And all in all, it just looks really nice, and I love how it turned out. It makes me so happy. It's my gay librarian dreams. What can I say? I would love to live in a place like that. That would be that is my goal. That is entirely my goal. Yeah, so it's for the insides of them. They're all like different specialist buildings and all this stuff. I did like, you know, path out some other pathways. I didn't end up adhering to them. I ended up changing it quite a lot actually. But that was just like, you know, the initial thing. And then yeah, so this one looks like one of those little Minecraft churches, like that spawn in default villages. And I added some brewing stands in and just like, you know, have like a little cleric. Now this one, I only realized when like editing and stuff that this block isn't on the palette. And I don't know why I actually did this block. I think I put it on the floor of one of the other ones and I'm like, oh, this is a nice block, and then I added it in. I'm not gonna lie, I really like it. It's another one of my favorite ones, just like how it looks. I love how it actually kind of looks good and looks better than a lot of my other builds. At least in this kingdom. But yeah, and then this final one, I didn't know what to add in this one. I decided I'll add in more animals into these sort of buildings. Because I'm like, yeah, I'll add another blue one because, you know, all of them are red, and add a little blue to balance it out. But yeah, I also didn't know what I was doing with the camera work because I didn't know where I was. So that was a struggle. But yeah, so in general, I'd say the biggest struggle was definitely the palette. I really struggled with that. I wasn't sure where to add things, how to make it look, what I could do to make it look better, and it ended up with me going back over it a lot of times to like, you know, be like, oh, I like how this one looks, I like how that looks, and do all of that just so I can have that look and be like, I'm happy with how this looks. I will finally stop, you know, touching it up and moving everything around and all that sort of stuff. I'd say the thing that made me like the happiest about this was how it turned out in the end. That's why I do building. I love building because I love to create things, and I love how to see how things like look with other things, and just in general, I'm a very creative person, and I love building things like both in Minecraft and not. And all of this, I love just seeing how it looks at the end. Like a lot of the time, because again, I'm streaming this as well, like in real time. I stream this and I talk to people, and I hang out with other people, and I was talking to a lot of my friends whilst I was building this, and a lot of the time I was like, what in hell made me decide that building was a good idea? But then I see how it all turns out, and I don't regret it. I just love how it looks so much, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is why I chose building. Like, I could have been a PvPer. I could have been like, you know, a hardcore god, which is what I was initially trying to do when I first started streaming. I was gonna become just a hardcore, and I would just do that. But now I only do like building and stuff because it just makes me so happy, and hardcore didn't make me that happy. But like this just makes me so just joyous. I love just seeing this and how it all comes together, and especially with like the colors and stuff. I would never be able to imagine a world without color. I'd never be able to imagine a world without, you know, just being able to do this. In my mind, this is one of the best things I could do because it's amazing. It makes me feel so happy, and especially with the amount of people that I've met along the way and all of this stuff, it's quite amazing, honestly. I love building, and I love the community that I've managed to make. But yeah, so in all, I added my little mushroom cows. We named them Bert, Ernie, and Brown Mushroom Henry. But yeah, so you can see that I did decide to make some farms, but again, they didn't stay. I ended up not doing that. So what I did was that I just I got the buildings, I took them off the wall because they were like imprinted into the wall. I cleaned them up a little bit so you wouldn't be able to, like, you know, notice that I kind of just ripped them straight from a wall. And then I just copied and pasted them a bunch, make sure to fix them all up. I swear I cleaned up that one building so many times, the blue and terracotta one. I did initially try and have, like, you know, my farms back in half, but I ultimately decided against it. That's because, again, it didn't give that you are small in a big place look that I really wanted to have. It just didn't give it to me, and so I decided against it. But yeah, this is all really fun. I really like doing this sort of stuff, especially with the finishing touches and being able to say this is done. It just makes me the happiest person in the world. But yeah, you can see I was having fun with the camera work, man. I finally got the replay mod to work, because last episode I didn't. I literally just recorded myself in the replay mod because I couldn't figure it out. But I finally got it to work, and I was having so much fun with just like zooming around and like having it finally work. It was so fun. But yeah, so that is District 3. Yeah. Well, that's District 2 actually, and 3. District 2 and 3. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching. Make sure to eat water, drink food, and keep consistent. Remember, I love y'all. Bye.